Welcome to the Laravel News Creator Spotlight Series. With me today is Ashley Hindle. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thanks for having me. Howdy.
Yeah, so you've been working on quite a few things recently. Your
Too
most
many.
recent app that I've seen, yeah, exactly. The most recent app I've seen you release it's called Wisp. Can you give us sort of like a little overview of what that is?
Absolutely. Yeah, Wisp is a pure PHP SSH server, basically. And I have been putting pure with an asterisk because it has some C in using FFI, which I've never done before. But it's basically pure PHP, right? And so it lets you run PHP CLI apps over SSH, basically. It's really cool and really fun.
So I guess I guess my first question is what is a good like example app that someone would want to build with this? Um, I guess that's how I'm trying to word that. Like I've never
Yeah.
never built an app with what you're talking about, like a pure SSH CLI app. So like, what would be a use case? I guess.
Yeah, I was asked this the other day. I'm doing some cool work at an agency at the minute called Spring Loaded, and their founder said, "What do you use it for?" I can't think of anything. And I struggled to like what's a real life use case because it kind of feels like it's mainly for fun. It's mainly for experimenting, and I think there are some useful use cases out there, and I've built some that I can talk about, but it feels like it's for fun experimentation. If I'm honest, like that's most of it, and I'm hoping other people that are smarter than I am can figure out all of those cool applications. So I've built the server part, and so if other cool people could build all the cool apps, that would be awesome.
Uh, that's cool. So it sort of reminds me of the people that are doing the coffee store through the CLI.
Terminal.shop,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I assume you could actually do something like that with this, right? Um,
Absolutely, yeah. So
okay, so
that
that
would be
might be
super
a
fun.
good example of a use case for a lot of the listeners, I guess. Um,
Absolutely, yeah. And also, Joe Tannenbaum has various SSH apps, but one of them is his resume, so you can SSH. I don't know the correct host name, but and you can see his resume and go to different tabs, which is again super cool to just showcase all the cool stuff.
yeah, that is pretty sweet. And so let me go to the thing. So I guess to step back a little bit, like what what was the inspiration for it, or like what were you working on, or like how did you decide, hey, I want to build a PHP SSH server?
It's not a smart decision. I'll start there. Quite a few things coalesced actually, and one of them was terminal.shop. I saw that you could SSH into terminal.shop, and that inspired me. But I left my last role in January, and I've been consulting and trying to figure out life since then. So I've been
Mhm.
coding for like 18 years and leading teams for a decade, and I've been taking a couple of months like, what do I actually enjoy? What do I want to do? What energizes me? Those kind of things. So I applied for a contract role to bring some money in whilst I was, figuring life out, essentially. And one of the things they want you to do is like a pet project, right? Prove to us that you are good. And everybody else was going to do websites. So I figured, well,
Right.
I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to try too hard and do something different. So I figured, well, I should build a CLI app. But if you build a CLI app, the person has to clone it. They have to composer install. They might have different PHP version. It could go poorly. So I want them to be able to, like a website, just go to a URL and all the cool stuff that I've built is there. So I think, well, now I need to make it accessible over SSH to really show how awesome I am. Nobody else will have done this, right? And just so happens a few days earlier, Sam Carr of Saloon fame, or at least to me, he had released a Docker image using a Go-based SSH server, which will run your PHP scripts. So I set that the thing up, it ran my PHP script, and it was great. But I thought, I don't want Go there, and I wanted to add some more apps. And I think with this setup, you had to have multiple Go servers for each individual PHP script. And I figured, that's too inefficient. I don't like that. Let's just build a PHP-based SSH server. And the first port of call when you make that kind of decision, has anybody done this before? And they hadn't. I thought, that is maybe a signal that I shouldn't do this. So I spoke to AI, I think it was Claude. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Like, what do I need to know? And it basically said, don't do it. It's a terrible idea. It's going to be really, really difficult. It's really complex. Just use a different SSH server that will run your script for you. And oddly, that spurred me on. I was like, no, okay, well, now I have to do it because I've been told I can't or I shouldn't. So, yeah, that was the main inspiration.
Well, how did the interviewer take it when they tried it out for the first time? Did you get the position from that, or?
That's the sad thing.
Oh no.
They loved it. They thought it was
Okay.
really, really great. They loved it, but they also wanted somebody with Perl experience, and I've not written much Perl. And there was somebody else who had made a PHP-based website but knew Perl. And I'm like, soz mate, this person knows Perl. I'm like, God, but look at my cool SSH app. What's wrong with you? And that didn't work. So that's okay.
That's crazy. Like, man, it's been so many years since I've used Perl. Like, I remember like way back in the old days, you would have like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but you had the CGI bin in all your PHP apps way back in the day, and you would throw your Perl scripts in there. And it was like, I forgot what I was using, but I never understood Perl either. It never clicked with me. But I just remember you would go download like these little weird apps and like run different things. But man, I'm going way back in time now.
Yeah. Well, when I started with PHP, it was literally just to add a contact form to. I made a website to show off that I was a hacker back in the day, because I used to hex edit apps and I was on Freenode and different IRC servers and things. Like, I'm so cool. I need a website to show how cool I am, and then I need a counter at the bottom and things. And I think that was PHP 4 or something back in the day. And it was around about that time you had to decide: do I go Perl? Do I go PHP? And I made the right choice, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're kind of going off on a tangent, but is Perl actually still heavily developed and used, or is it just legacy stuff still using Perl?
I think it's
no idea.
legacy. Yeah, I think this was legacy, and they were modernizing it. So everything I've seen, at least, is legacy.
Right. Yeah, that's wild. So what was the hardest part about building Wisp, other than, well, I assume you said that Claude told you not to do it because it was impossible, but once you jumped in, like what was really hard?
Two things come to mind. The first thing was encryption. So the first couple of packets in an SSH connection are unencrypted, but literally 2 packets are unencrypted, and then they're all encrypted after that. So you have to figure out that really quickly to have a working SSH server. And I've never really done encryption before. Laravel makes encryption and hashing so easy. It hides it all, away from you, and you just use it and it just works. But for this, I had to write encryption, and I tried to use PHP seclib and libsodium and then some OpenSSL functions directly. And I kept messing it up. So many hours wasted on whether I had the correct packet sequence or whether I had the correct nonce, and whether it's big endian or little endian, and whether I had the padding correct. And the SSH client doesn't tell you much when you get the encryption wrong. It just says, no, I don't like this, and it disconnects. And you're like, well, so you literally just modifying little things, testing again. Is this now correct? Are you happy, SSH client? Please be happy. And it usually isn't. And so I spent so long on that, but I still remember when I got it working. Like and it was something with a nonce, and I got it working, and I pressed up and enter, and it connected. And I was so happy. It was such a great feeling. But that is so tricky, and actual SSH servers support 15 different encryption types, things like that. But Wisp only supports one encryption type because it was so difficult. And it's a super secure encryption type, and it's widely supported, so it works fine. But I didn't want to have to go through that again with another 10 of them. And at some point, maybe I'll add more. But yeah, it was super tricky. And then the second thing is a pseudo terminal to run the actual PHP app in the Laravel Prompts apps, usually. To have all of the data flow in and out correctly, to have all of the signal handling, like when you press Control-C and things, to have all of that work correctly, you have to do some really weird stuff with to set up a pseudo terminal, to set up a PTY. You have to create a master and slave, PTY. Then you have to connect the standard in and the standard out. You have to unlock it. You have to grant PT. I still haven't figured out what that actually does, but you have to do it or it doesn't work. And you have to set it as the controlling terminal. You have to set a foreground process. And it's so much of it I still don't 100% understand, but it works really well. But thankfully, there's so many clever people out there that we're standing on the shoulders of, that we're learning from. So I could learn from some Go script that has a PTY. I'm like, why are they doing that? Like, how does this work? And so I spent a lot of time reading other people's code to try and grok what I'm supposed to do. But that was really, really tricky. And I got it working, and I thought, I'm done. I can move on. And then Control-C didn't work. It didn't get forwarded to the app. And then 3-4 days later, I finally figured that out. I got that working. And now I'm not touching any of it because it's all perfect. That was painful.
What for that side of it, is there like RFCs for this stuff, or is it just like you just have to go find documentation like in weird places?
Well, the PTY stuff is documentation in weird places and reading other people's source code. For SSH, the actual protocol, there are so many lovely RFCs. And what's awesome about this is AI has read all of those RFCs. So when I'm stuck or I think it's not behaving correctly, in Cursor, I'll use the chat, say, based on the SSH RFCs, what is supposed to happen here? What is expected? And it will show me what's in the RFC. I'm like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. This is what I need to do. And that is so ridiculously helpful. But yeah, for the PTY stuff, mainly reading other people's source code, which very grateful for GitHub. I've never been so grateful in my life.
That's awesome. So this is sort of outside the package, are you using Cursor now pretty much full time, or do you switch back and forth between it and other editors?
Basically using Cursor full time. I did use PHP Storm again recently. I think I saw Jeffrey Ways maybe. I was watching the Laracast series and they use PHP Storm, and so many things are super easy, to refactor variable names or extract something out into a property, like makes things super easy. And so I did try it for a week or two, and it was way too slow, and the AI wasn't as good. And so I just went back to Cursor. I have tried Windsurf and Z.dev as well, but Cursor is just better than all of them, to be fair. It just works better.
What are you, so in Cursor, does it automatically support like Laravel, or do you have to like do packages and stuff? Like, I've actually never used Cursor, but I keep hearing about it. So I'm like, I got to go try it. Cause I still love PHP Storm. So I never actually tried anything else.
Yeah. When you start up Cursor in a new project, it indexes your entire code base so that it can understand what's going on. And you can also add custom project rules. So in the project rules, you can, kind of like an AI prompt, you can say, this is a Laravel project. We're using, Laravel 12, or we're using PHP 8.4, and we expect you to do these things. And then it will, work off that. So you don't have to add anything. It kind of figures it out from indexing it. But you only get the best performance out of Cursor if you set these rules, if you tell it how you expect it to behave and things. And that was incredibly helpful because I could put in those rules, use the SSH RFCs to determine how we should move forward. So never go off on a tangent, guessing. We will always rely on the RFCs. And so every time I spoke to it, it had that built-in kind of rule on how to behave, which made it a lot more useful as a pair programmer, basically, a lot better.
That's awesome. Yeah, your next project should be an intro to Cursor video.
I would love to do. I actually have a Notion page on whether I should do an AI pair programming video course. I would really love to do that. I'd love to one day be a Laracast's instructor. That would be a dream. But my next project actually is called Croft, and it's an MCP server for your AI code editors. So it is AI related, but a bit more detailed, I guess.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you have to reach out to Jeffrey because I know he's always looking for new courses. So that would be that'd be something.
I think
something pretty cool. I know I would definitely watch that.
Awesome. That's good to know. I'm gonna use that as a quote when I email him.
Yes. We'll clip this out and you just send him that I say you should do it. Tell him.
Perfect.
Tell Eric says like I have any pull whatsoever. So going back to Wisp, so you have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, you have 5 demos. Let's see, number 1, sign your guest book. What high score can you get? Example with params, basic hello world, and watch your sunrise and sunset. So, okay, the one I did had confetti all over it, which I don't see that listed here. So maybe I did a different one.
There were even more than that. Yeah, I've only documented a few of them. Yeah. But at the same time as building Wisp, I was inspired by Joe Tannenbaum's CLI experiments, where he did loads of cool stuff in the CLI, and some very good blog posts on hacking Laravel prompts. And so I added mouse support to Laravel Prompts app, so you can click things and you can drag and drop elements within a terminal app. You can right click and have a context menu. You can copy to clipboard. You can send desktop notifications. I've done really silly things. And so I actually have a lot of demos where it will send you a desktop notification or it will copy to your clipboard, things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of, maybe I should update my documentation actually, because there's a lot of cool demos.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think the original one I seen was just on the GitHub repo README, and then now I'm looking at the actual the docs page, and which is kind of neat. So like, I was going to say, which one of those were sort of the most fun to build out of all your demos you've done so far?
Recently I added SSH key authentication to Wisp, which has opened up a whole plethora of apps that you can now build. Because before, you couldn't authenticate who a user was. So it had to be things like Sign the Guest Book or Dino Run, the game where you jump your dinosaur and see the high score you can get, which I didn't code. I asked AI, hey, can you copy the Chrome dinosaur jumping game so it works on a CLI app? And it did. And then it worked.
That's amazing.
But the one that is the coolest is a secrets app that uses SSH key authentication. Because recently I had to ask for a Nova license key. I needed the key to run Composer Update. And that got sent through a 1Password shared item, and I had to log in, and it was horrible. So now that I've got SSH key authentication, I've built the system so you can SSH to secrets at wisp.fyi, and you can leave a secret for any GitHub username, and only that person will be able to access it. Because your GitHub, your public SSH keys are accessible on GitHub. If you know their GitHub username, you can list all of their SSH keys. And so that means I can leave you a secret and I'll give you this SSH command, and only you will be able to access it with your private SSH key. Nobody else in the world will be able to access it because they don't have your SSH private key. It's as secure as cloning. It's as secure as SSH into a server. So I can leave you an API key, and it's encrypted on my server. The column's encrypted, the database is encrypted, but only you can access it. And that's so exciting to me because I just added SSH key authentication, and now I've got this really cool and useful app. And I could tweet the SSH thing to go and view it, and 1 million people could try and access it, and it would fail. That's so cool that it's this public way of sharing the secret, but only you can see it. Like, I don't know. That is super cool that we can authenticate people now with our PHP apps. Like, yeah, so cool.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. And then next you'll have to have it where you can like auto expire it after X number of days or hours or minutes, and then that way it's it clears it off the server. But yeah, see, I love that's the part I like about like all these little apps and stuff. Is like you can just be so creative and come up with some of the wildest ideas, and then it's like, and then all of a sudden, boom! Like here's something like this is probably really, really useful, and I just think that's awesome.
It's so cool, and especially I have a SaaS called Fancy OG, which generates dynamic Open Graph images. So when you share a URL, it's got a really lovely image based on that page. But I added a custom app so that I can SSH to Fancy OG, and it gives me a little dashboard of all these cool commands that I can run. So I can tail the logs, or I can crawl a URL to pre-generate images, or I can clear the cache. But only I can access it because it's set to authorize based on my SSH key. So even, if you go give somebody else the SSH command, they can't access it, which is just still so cool to me that you can lock this functionality behind that, and you don't have to log in. If I had to go to a website and log in, that's a pain. You can just SSH, and the login is built into the connection, which I still love. So yeah, there are lots of cool applications. I'm hoping people who are more creative than me will be like, oh yeah, I'll connect this SSH key authentication to this thing, and that will unlock 50 things. And I don't know what that is, but I'm looking forward to people trying it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So actually, tell me a little bit more about this. It's called Fancy OG. I tried to look it up.
Yeah, it's fancyog.com. So it gives you a URL, and it will generate Open Graph images. And it's kind of like, have you used Glade with Statamic?
Yes.
So it's kind of like you use query params, and it will generate you a brand new image, so you can change what the image looks like. So every page on your website has a custom social media preview image, basically. So I'm using that on all of my websites, and I figured maybe other people need this, and if not, I need it. So this is great.
Yeah. Well, that was actually where I was going with this, because like even like on the Laravel news site, every article has its own OG image, because we create like these featured images for everything. Yeah. But like every other page don't have it; just has like this generic single one. So that's kind of I like this idea. I'm gonna have to research this for myself, because I'm like that would be something useful and less headache for me, because then I don't have to build anything.
It's very nice.
Anything else that you want to mention about Wisp that maybe I forgot to ask about?
Good question. I don't think so. The main thing is I'd love for, as I've repeated probably way too much now, I'd love for super cool people to give it a try and like see what they can build with it. I'd love for people to reach out and share what they've got going on, what they've built. I'm more than happy to hear from people and help people or add functionality if it would make things, even more things possible. But yeah, it's super cool. Everybody should give it a try. I reckon that's the bottom line.
I love it. I love it. And of course, the best way, I guess, to find it is WhispPHP.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you Wisp? WHISP PHP.com. There you go.
Yeah, very difficult to find the perfect domain name for it, but
Well, I'm just thinking my accent's going to come across weird as the way I say something. So then I have to spell it out. Otherwise, people might not understand what I'm saying.
fair enough. It sounds great, but that makes sense.
Oh, that's perfect. And Ashley, where can people find you if they want to follow you on anything?
I go to ashleyhindle.com. I point to all of my weird stuff that I've got going on there. I'm doing way too many things. I've got way too many side projects. Yeah, it's a weird place, but it's all on there.
Well, I think that's just a typical developer. We always, I think it's pretty normal that we all have all this stuff that we want to do, and we play around with stuff all the time.
I think so. And there's still so much that I want to add to Wisp, that's coming. So I need to do that whilst trying to build new things. It's not going well.
Oh, what do you? Any other cool projects you've launched recently, or is Wisp sort of the thing you've been working on the last, I guess, few months now?
Wisp is the main thing. Croft is the next thing. That's an MCP server that you add to your AI code editor, and it will give the IDE extra access to your Laravel app. So it'll be able to query your Eloquent models. It'll be able to read your logs for you. It'll be able to screenshot URLs. It can see all of your config variables, your M variables, and things like that. So it knows as much as you know and can help you even better, which I'm super excited about because I do a lot of Laravel coding using AI, and this is going to make it so much easier. But I also want to add a Laravel package for Wisp so you can integrate it more easily, a Docker app, a Laravel starter kit, now that you can have custom Laravel starter kits. There's too much to do. I'm also building another library so you can query the capabilities of terminals, because some terminals can support desktop notifications and some don't, for example. And because I'm building so many CLI experiments, I need to be able to query, does it support this thing, yes or no? So I'm also building that. So and doing some contract consulting work as well. There's a lot going on.
Just super busy. What terminal is your favorite right now? Like, I'm still on iTerm 2 or whatever. I never updated to any of the new stuff.
The iTerm's got great support. I've been doing a lot of testing with a lot of different ones of what they support, and iTerm 2 has very good support. Right now I'm using Ghosty. I assume that's how you say it, Ghost TTY. And it's really, really nice. It works really, really well. It's lovely.
So I'll have to try that one out too. Well, I guess before we leave, I'm going to invite you back. So when you launch the next one, the AI with the IDE, you got to come back on and talk about it. And,
absolutely, yeah.
Because it's always a pleasure. But actually, I want to thank you for coming on and talking about your project. And everybody that's listening, go check it out. But thank you again, Ashley.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the chat.